Somewhere in Paris, inside the French National Library, there's a small metal box. To open it, you have to sign a waiver. You have to put on protective gloves and a lead apron. And even then, you're only allowed to look for a few minutes. Inside that box are notebooks. Just notebooks. Pages of handwriting, chemistry notes, sketches. They've been sitting there since 1902, and they are still radioactive enough to hurt you. They belong to a woman most of us think we already know. We saw her face in a textbook. We know she discovered radioactivity. We know she won a Nobel Prize. But we were never told the whole story. And the ending is a lot darker than the version they teach in school. Marie Curie was born Maria Skłodowska in Warsaw, Poland, in 1867. And from the very beginning, the world was built to keep her out of science. Poland was under Russian occupation at the time, and universities there were completely closed to women. If Marie wanted a real education, she had exactly one option. Something Polish students nicknamed the Flying University. A secret underground school that moved locations constantly to avoid being shut down by Russian authorities. Think about that for a second. Just to learn, she was risking arrest. She eventually saved enough money, working as a governess for years, to move to Paris and enroll at the Sorbonne. She lived alone in an unheated attic apartment, surviving on bread and tea, sometimes fainting from hunger during lectures. She graduated at the top of her class in physics, then top of her class again in mathematics. That's where she met Pierre Curie, a physicist who would become her husband and research partner. Together, they started chasing something almost nobody else in the world was paying attention to yet. A strange, invisible energy coming from certain rocks. They called it radioactivity. Marie Curie actually coined that exact word. Here's the part that never makes it into the textbook illustrations. The laboratory where Marie Curie did the work that would win her a Nobel Prize was a leaky, abandoned shed. No proper ventilation, no running water. The roof let in rain. In the winter, it was so cold that chemicals would sometimes freeze in their containers. Marie and Pierre spent 4 straight years in that shed, processing tons, literally tons, of a mineral called pitchblende by hand, stirring boiling vats with an iron rod nearly her own height, trying to isolate a substance so rare it existed in the ore at a concentration of a few parts per million. Nobody handed them safety equipment, because nobody knew yet that they needed any. Radiation wasn't understood as dangerous. Scientists at the time actually thought glowing radioactive material seemed healthy. Some doctors prescribed radioactive water as a tonic. Marie carried test tubes of radium in her pockets. She kept a sample by her bed at night because she loved the soft blue-green glow it gave off in the dark. In 1898, they successfully isolated 2 new elements. They named one polonium, after Marie's home country, Poland, partly as a statement to the world, since Poland didn't even exist as an independent nation on the map at the time. The second they named radium. In 1903, Marie Curie won the Nobel Prize in Physics. She was the first woman to ever win one. But here's a detail most people don't know. The Nobel Committee originally planned to award the prize only to Pierre and their colleague Henri Becquerel. Marie's name almost wasn't on it at all. It was only added after Pierre insisted, refusing to accept the prize unless his wife, who had done the actual foundational research, was properly credited. Then, in 1906, tragedy hit. Pierre was crossing a busy Paris street in the rain and slipped. A horse-drawn wagon ran over him, and he was killed instantly. Marie was suddenly a widow, raising 2 young daughters alone. And now, the sole face of a scientific field the world still barely understood. She didn't stop. She took over Pierre's teaching position at the Sorbonne, becoming the university's first female professor. In 1911, she won a second Nobel Prize, this time in chemistry, making her the first person in history, man or woman, to win Nobel Prizes in 2 different sciences. And during World War I, she didn't stay in a lab. She personally designed mobile X-ray units, nicknamed Little Curies, and drove them to the front lines herself, helping doctors locate bullets and shrapnel in wounded soldiers. She's estimated to have helped treat over 1 million soldiers this way. By any measure, she was one of the most accomplished humans of the 20th century. But the entire time, through the Nobel Prizes, through the war, through every year in that lab, she had no idea that the thing she'd devoted her life to was slowly killing her. By the 1920s, her fingertips were cracked and scarred from constant radiation exposure. Her eyesight was failing from cataracts caused by the same exposure. She suffered from chronic fatigue, dizzy spells, and ringing in her ears that never fully went away. In 1934, Marie Curie died. The official cause was aplastic anemia, a bone marrow disease caused by decades of radiation exposure. Her own body had run out of the ability to make healthy blood cells, poisoned slowly by the element she'd given a name to. And that's the reason for the box we started with. Marie Curie's lab notebooks, along with her cookbooks, her furniture, even some of her clothing, are still contaminated with radium today, not a little. Enough that they're stored in lead-lined boxes, and anyone who wants to study them has to wear protective gear and sign a liability waiver first. Radium has a half-life of about 1,600 years, which means those notebooks, the actual handwriting of the woman who named the word radioactivity, will still be dangerous to touch in the year 3600. She gave humanity nuclear medicine, cancer treatment technology, and a scientific field that didn't exist before her. And the tools she used to build all of it are locked away today, because the version of the story we usually hear leaves out just how much it cost her to get there. We remember her for the prizes. Maybe we should also remember the shed with a leaking roof, the test tube she kept glowing by her bed, and the fact that nobody, including her, ever knew the danger until it was already too late. If you didn't know that part of her story, you're not alone. Most people don't. That's kind of the point of this channel, taking the people we think we already know and showing you the side that never made it into the textbook. Subscribe if you want the next one. And let me know in the comments, whose story should we do next?